Hello and welcome to another Bleckmann Beyond Threat podcast. I am your host, Erik Janssen Steenberg, and together we will be taking another deep dive in the subjects, the trends and developments in fashion and lifestyle logistics. Today we will be talking about circularity in logistics. And for that topic, we have invited two experts, knowing Ron Thijssen, Bleckmann's very own CSR director. Welcome.
Very good morning, Eric. Thanks for having us.
Oh, absolutely. Our treat. Yeah. And of course, our program manager for the Renewal Workshop, Robben. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Eric, for having me.
Absolutely. So, guys, do me and our listeners a favor, please. Briefly introduce yourself and your role within our company, of course. And perhaps you can also kick off the conversation in explaining why circularity is so important and becoming even more important in fashion.
Well, yes, to kick off, my name is Ron. I've been working now for a little shorter than 13 years within Bleckmann, not always in sustainability. Mm-hmm. Started out in a commercial role, later on went to a more operational, and the last 5 years now leading the company in a more sustainable direction. Sustainable and logistics are things that are, well, side by side. I mean, what is sustainability? Sustainability is to minimize your impact by looking out for your resources, your people, your materials, etc. Yeah. And logistics is the same, being as efficient as possible in your processes.
Right. So we need to touch on that social part as well. So it's very important. Good that you mentioned that as well. Because when people talk about CSR, everybody thinks
it's all about environment,
circularity.
It's more than but it's more than just the E of environment. It's also the S and social. I mean, we are a logistic company. We don't produce anything. Our people are our biggest asset. So we have to take care of our people, but not only the people, also the affected communities around us. And last but not least, the G as in governance is in how do you lead your company? How do you run your company? So what strategic choices do you make for developing a real strategic, a real sustainable strategy? Top.
Well, I'm Hans, within Bleckmann Programme Manager for the Renewal Workshop. With the Renewal Workshop, we take care of all the operational aspects of renewing items and preparing them for their second life and their third life, and basically keeping them in continuous use. And you could say that circularity as a means to an end, is a means for a company to become more sustainable. With circularity, we extend the life cycle of the fashion items. We reduce the impact, the need for virgin material in making these items. And also we reduce the waste that is generated by this industry.
So Ron, looking at the developments over the last 5 years, but also towards the future, what are the major issues you currently see caused by the fashion industry?
Well, the fashion industry has caused more issues than just the last 5 years. I mean, we're in business since 1862, being a part of the problem since that time. And we want to be more as a part of the solution for the next couple of years. Mm-hmm. But the major impact in the fashion industry it's about the pollution, it's about the usage of materials and the depletion of resources. It's about the carbon emissions, it's about working conditions. I mean, I can go on and on. I don't want to sound too negative. Luckily, things are changing. The industry is becoming more aware of the things they are responsible for, but not only from their own motivation, it's also the legislation that is helping and guiding them to become a more circular and less impactful organization.
So, you paint a grim picture, so to speak, but the trend that you see is that we are moving towards a more, knowledgeable...
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just only the companies itself, it's the consumer that is driving the market.
Which is even better, of course.
Even better. If a consumer decides to wear a green T-shirt as of tomorrow, I'm sure our clients will produce nothing less than green T-shirts. Correct. So they have a voice in the whole transition towards circularity and being more sustainable.
So a drive coming or a push coming from the clientele of the brands is actually more compelling than legislation.
Yeah, and legislation is more like guiding to make certain, measurable KPIs.
Yeah.
if it comes to percentage of circularity, if it comes to KPIs on carbon emission, your impact, etc. I mean, we are now at the verge of implementing the CSRD, Corporate Social Responsibility Directive, in which a company that is eligible for this CSRD legislation has to report at a maximum of 1,140 KPIs.
Whoa.
So it's going to be measurable.
Yeah. So there's a distinct need
absolutely.
to become more aware, professional on the side of the brands. Okay, that makes perfect sense. And Hans, when we then look at circular fashion, how does that fit into the strategies like Ron just mentioned? How is that a vital component in sustainability and circularity?
Well, circularity is a means for a company to become more sustainable. And they do this by keeping the items that they produce in continuous use. So circularity extends the life cycle of fashion items, firstly. And secondly, it's also about reducing the virgin materials that are used to create new items and ultimately reducing waste. So these three aspects play perfectly into the sustainability goals within the CSRD.
Yeah, and during your introduction, you mentioned third and even fourth cycle or life cycle of products.
Yeah.
That is something that is filling me with joy, because I know from a business perspective, I always highlight value retention, but if it's actually being sold a third and a fourth time, it quite clearly shows that the products that have been returned are still in pristine condition, or by your operation brought to that pristine quality to be resold again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what we see as well. We see that 80% of garments that are at the moment seen as being waste still have a commercial value.
80%?
80%, like 80. So that means that through repair and cleaning steps, you can bring these items back to a higher quality and to a commercial value as a pre-owned, a pre-loved, restored item. And so that means that you can sell them again, get a second life, and maybe also a third life and a fourth life. That is definitely possible within the industry at the moment.
Right. And sorry to say, because it is, of course, your expertise, but I think it's very important that we underline that we have our own locations in country. So we're not sending it back to East Asia.
Correct.
We're doing it in country, and therefore further limiting carbon footprint, etc. And have revenue retention on the spot.
Exactly. That's one of the big differences between the circular business model and, let's say, the linear one. Take, make, waste.
Yes, of course.
Take, make, waste. The make is oftentimes in the Far East, whereas in circular business models, you try to do the repair and cleaning as close to the consumer as possible, exactly to limit the impact of that business model on the environment.
Yeah. And I know that there are a lot of brands now listening, or at least the people working in the sustainability teams, project teams. So making sure that they don't have to reinvent the wheel over and over. What are the different options that we as Bleckmann offer in circular fashion?
Well, for brands at the moment, there are different business models that they can choose from. I think the most known will be the resale and recommerce business model.
Yeah, of course.
In which brands organize trade-in programs, and they ask you to send your sweater back in return for a voucher to buy something new.
Yeah.
Those items can be renewed and then also prepared for resale again. That's one business model that they can operate. Another one is customer repair, where you can send back your damaged sweater to the brand repairs it and sends it back to you. That's basically a very old business model, because previously you would go to the local repair shop, and now a layer of convenience is added where you can send it to the brand and it is automatically sent back to you. But there is also the business model of rental, for example, in which you don't own the garments you wear anymore, but you just rent them for the time that you need them.
Yeah.
So that also means that each item is used multiple times, almost automatically. And then there is one, maybe the easiest one to start with for a brand, that is rescuing damaged returns. We know that the fashion industry suffers from a high return rate, 20-30% is no exception. And an important part of these returns are damaged. When you try on a new sweater and it's maybe a size too small, you tear off a button or a seam becomes loose or whatever. These items can be repaired with a success rate of up to 50% and can be sold as new again. Whereas at the moment, these items are being stockpiled somewhere in the corner of a warehouse, and then after 3 years, they are discarded.
Yeah.
And so that's a relatively easy step for a brand to start their journey into circularity.
Yeah, and I then particularly like the options of rental and trade-in, because there the customer is also involved.
Yeah.
So then the whole chain is, well, working on the solution together.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
one thing. And when I was in the US, I saw that trade-in was a real important service. And at the moment, I don't really see that too much in Europe.
Yeah.
Do you expect that to change? Do you expect that to grow in the near future?
Yeah, definitely. Trade-in and recommerce will definitely grow, but it is true that customer repair is at the moment maybe the prevailing business model on the continent. In the UK, it's mostly rental as well. And by this, you see that each consumer group, let's say, has its own preferences. But that also means that as a brand, you need to be active in several business models at the same time. You cannot just bet everything on recommerce or bet everything on rental. It's very important that you keep trying out different business models at the same time in the different regions.
Yeah, and when we then look at our own existing operations in the several countries that we have them, who are the main brands that are really advocating on part of the environment and advocating on sustainable practices? Who do we work with? Who do we learn with?
I think one of the examples towards the recommerce business model is COS. COS, part of the H&M group, is organizing trade-in programs where their customers can send worn items back. We renew these items and we prepare them for resale. And the resale is done in, I think at the moment, 17 stores across Europe, where COS has organized a separate corner for their restore collection.
Yeah.
So that's a good example. Another example is Oterium, the online outlet platform, for which we are repairing the damaged returns. Also, they suffer from a high percentage of returns, also a high percentage of damaged returns. And so we can repair back to new state approximately 50% of those returns that can be sold as new again the next day or the next week, which of course for them has a huge impact, not only on environment, but also business-wise.
And is it always a given that a repaired or a renewed product is sold under, let's say, a pre-loved or a resell label?
No, not necessarily. Coming from a brand, they try to market it as a separate collection with a separate name, Restore, and that works very well. But if you sell something on Vinted, on eBay, you don't say it's Eric renewed or Eric pre-owned. You just sell it as a used item, and there is not a lot of marketing involved. And that is still also a very important volume, let's say, of renewed or second-hand items. Yeah,
and I specifically asked that because I have a 16-year-old daughter, and she scouts all the socials and the pre-loved platforms, looking for that one item that is repaired by, for example, Bleckmann, and has a specific differentiator. And when she finds that, she has a one-off, and she would actually pay, is almost inclined to pay more than a new product because it is a one-off.
Because it is unique, and that's what you see in the remake business model, where brands make a new collection or a new item out of multiple defective items. They take the parts and components and they make one new item, and by doing that they create a unique collection, and indeed they can sell these items at a higher value than the normal collection. So even in circularity, there is also a high value to be made.
Yeah, which is, at least to my modest opinion, a huge game changer. Previously, people who bought resell were looking for a bargain, and now it's almost upselling. Yeah, so
Yeah.
the trends are changing, yeah, and are bettering, to my opinion. Ron, so what do you see as next steps for the brands, and in finding the right partner, in finding the right operations, in finding the right way to adhere to new legislation?
Well, as Hans also said, the companies now are looking for the best and most sustainable option, or the
Yeah.
best circular way of doing things. I think it's most important, and that sounds perhaps a little bit strange, because every company is set up for success.
Yeah.
And well, sustainability, it's a journey, it's not a destination. You have to go along and figure things out. You are allowed to fail, but just make this start and try a different approach, whether it comes to production or to transporting or to packaging materials. Every single step of the process, of the production process, or the supply chain, you have to look at and see, is there a way we can do things differently? I mean, if you look at, for example, outbound transport,
Yeah.
is it going to be electrical? Is it going to be HVO? Is it going to be hydrogen fuel driven? Are we still using trucks, smaller vans? Are we going to operate drones to deliver? I mean, there are certain aspects of the whole process you really have to look at. But please make this step.
Yeah.
Just sitting there and thinking about things, how to change, is not going to solve the problem. You have to start, and then again, you are allowed to fail. I mean, how small this step is, it doesn't matter, as long as it's in the right direction.
Yeah. So it's better to simply start and maybe
Yes.
not be perfect
Exactly.
than to stay rigid and be part of the issue, the problem,
Yeah.
so to say.
Yeah.
It's an evolution.
I completely agree with Ron that the industry is at a very uncertain era. Let's say there is a lot of moving parts at the moment, so it's very difficult to know or to have your crystal ball and to say, okay, for me it will be recommerce, or customer repair is not the business model for me. You don't know, because also your consumers don't know yet. And so instead of waiting and then maybe being too late compared to other companies, it's much more useful to try different options and to learn from your customers as well, what works and what doesn't work, and then adapt and try again.
That's why we also organize those round tables to invite our clients, the brands,
Yeah.
to sit around the table and to discuss openly what they have tried, what is successful for them, what does work, what doesn't work, why doesn't it work, and learn from each other. Be open, be transparent, and help each other. I mean, you have to find the right partners. Comes in a supply chain or comes with even your competitors, and you can learn from previous mistakes or previous successes.
So when the listeners that are currently not part of our clientele, so to say, when they want to be part of those roundtable discussions, or when they simply want to pick your brain on what's next, or how can we do this in a better or more sustainable way, how can these companies reach out to you and have a discussion?
Well, very simple. Go to the website www.bleckmann.com and send an email, and we'll send out an invitation if they want to participate, to share knowledge, to gain knowledge. It's all about partnership.
Very good. So I think our main message is that we want to lower the threshold as much as we can, and invite people to simply start.
It's a problem. It's everybody's problem.
Yeah.
So everybody has to contribute to the solution, not only our clients.
Very good. Very good. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we're already at the end of our episode. That's all the time we have. Thank you, and talk to you soon. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching today. An insightful episode, which we all have learned a lot about circularity in fashion and lifestyle. Hopefully, it has incentivized you to become part of the solution and not of the problem. Please make sure to subscribe to our podcast, follow our socials, so that you will be part of our next episode. Thank you very much for watching again, and see you soon.